everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on episode 2 of Tsurune, and yeah, I couldn't wait. I was really excited after the last episode because it just has this like serene, soft, I can already tell it's probably going to be one of my comfort animes, and we're 1 episode in. So I was like, alright, Ryohei, Minato, Seiya, and then Nanao, and then Kachan, Kaido. I can already tell that I'm going to like want to love and protect these boys, so... And we're only 1 episode in. We don't even know the name of our mystery David Bowie Owlman yet. So what are we going to do about that? But Wushin Suibian, who actually, Wushin was one of the people that originally told me to watch Tsurune. They were like, oh, you should watch Tsurune like years ago, if you can believe it. And I was like, well, we'll get to it one day. And here we are. So Wushin did not know I'd already watched the first episode and sent me some information being like, hey, here's just some info about the voice actors and stuff that you might want to know. It's nothing to do with the plot, nothing to do with the story, but you might want to know this info. So now, I was trying to see if I recognized any voices in the last episode, but none of them really stood out. And now I'm like, oh, so the voice actors of our main crew that we know so far, Romania Minato's voice actor is Imura Yudo, who is Thorfinn from Vinland Saga and is also at Sushi from Bungo Stray Dogs. And I was like, really? Our feral wolf boy Thorfinn is this little meek archer? What? And at Sushi? Oh my god, it's crazy, right? Just crazy. Like, I can see Thorfinn and Atsushi if you watch those series. Like, that, I could see that, but for Minato, it's a much more subdued role. So whenever I hear who a voice actor is for a character, it's either usually like a typecast thing where you kind of know what to expect. Like Miyano Mamoru, he's a voice actor that when you know he's voice acting a character, it's like you have expectations of what that character might be like. But then you have voice actors like Ono, who voices Canute in Vinland Saga and voices like other characters, who's like a chameleon and you don't know what his character's going to sound like at all. And it's like, I don't know. And so Yudo's kind of like that as well. So that's interesting. Nanao's character is Yugo Shogo, who is Mafiu from Given. And I was like, oh, so Mafiu's voice actor is playing the pretty boy who's popular. Maybe typecast. But unlike Mafiu, who is super quiet and like introverted, Nanao is like the total opposite, like total extrovert. So I'm like, this is interesting that his voice actor will get to play a totally different character, right? So I'm excited about that. And then Kaido, our Kachan, our resident serious boy, is voiced by Ishikawa Kaido, which is funny. Kaido is voicing Kaido, and he's the voice actor for Kageyama from Haikyuu. And I was like, oh, the king. Okay, so yeah, I can see the Kageyama. I can see it, right? That voice actor makes a lot of sense. So I'm pretty excited about that. And of course, my dog going crazy. I have 2 dogs with me right now, so if they're loud during this, I'm babysitting Ruby. She has come to play with Huckleberry, and so they may get loud. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But we also have Ryohei and Seiya. Those 2 voice actors. I really like Ryohei as a character, and his voice was really cool. And Wushin Suibian shared the voice actors for Ryohei and Seiya, but they're voice actors I've not listened to their voices in any series. Ryohei's is Suzuki Ryota. I looked on his MAL and there was no series I recognized. I was like, And then Seiya's is Ichikawa Aoi. And the only character I recognize that he's played is he did like some support characters from Haikyuu. Like no major like named characters, just like little support teammates and stuff. So I'm like, But they're both really good voice actors. But the thing that got me was that apparently this is a light novel series that came out in 2016. The anime came out in 2018. 2 years after the novel. Y'all know how long it takes to animate stuff. We've been waiting for Yuri on Ice Adolescence for 5 years. Kiwani, some guy that was on the team picking scripts, read this book series, like closed the book, ran to Kiwani, jumped up the stairs, ran up 5 flights, knocked a guy out of the way, chucked the book on the desk, and is like, we're adapting it now. Get the animators out of cryogenic freeze. Let's do this. And then they did. So I'm like, oh my god, that's a 2-year turnaround from reading from the book coming out to having an adaptation. There are so many series that do not get that fast of an adaptation. And Kiwani's like, we can do this. So, insanity. And especially like knowing Kiwani, like everything that was going on around that time, like within the next few years, it's just wild. It's wild. So I was floored. I was like, in 2-year turnaround, Kiwani's like, we're going to animate the hell out of this. and get it out there. I'm like, okay. So yeah, that is fascinating to me. But yeah, so thank you, Wishin Suibian, for all that information. I really appreciate that. But yeah, I'm pretty excited. I could not wait. I wanted to dive into episode 2, and here we are. So hopefully these dogs will be quiet. But we are not going to waste any more time. I'm ready to start episode 2 and see what's up with our owl boy, what's going on, and just go from there. So we are going to start episode 2 of Tsurune, and we are going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. I thought he was a ghost. I wonder how many people did think he was a ghost. I really do. And of course, Huck and my other dogs were like, no. But I was about to be like, whenever he was there the second time, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, how could he have gave him the bun with the red bean paste? How did he transfer the owl? How does this work? I was getting ready to get whiteboard kit out and just start drawing all these scenarios and try to logically explain it and break it down. But luckily it was just a misunderstanding. But the show really makes you think. I was fully ready for Tsurune to become a supernatural show. No, I was fully ready. But that luckily did not need to be the case. So, man, this episode's really good. Huck and Ruby are going crazy, so you'll have to excuse them. They're being rude. But this episode was really good. I definitely getting more into Minato's character and establishing some things. Based on the ED, my theory is that him and his mom were in an accident, like either a car accident or some kind of accident. He had to have surgery, which is why he has the scar on the side. And then in the ED, it showed him with like a big patch on his face. So I'm thinking that he had an accident and she died in it and he survived. But it's had an impact on him. And I think that's tied to the target panic, that it's just tied to himself, especially with how Masaki describes it. So I think there's some connections there. But what I love about this is that the dynamics we're getting with Minato, as well as Seiya, and getting more into Seiya's character, and Seiya revealing that whole conversation he has with Minato when he's like, oh, do you want me to just blame you for everything? Is this what you want me to tell you? We'll get to that. But I was like, oh, okay, this is Seiya's personality. Cool. Awesome. So yeah, and so then we get Masaki. Oh my God. So I put Masaki here. Masaki's interesting. I like Masaki's character a lot, but Masaki's up here. And I'll put him and Who the Owl, which is, it's just a funny name anyway. But he's been doing 100 arrows a day. He's like, you hurt your hand. He's like, I'll help you get better. He's like, I'll patch you up. I want to see him without his ponytail. He reminds me a lot of Kaji, right? And not just because of the ponytail. He just has this like cool vibe to him. If you've watched Neon Genesis, he has a cool Kaji vibe. But yeah, so he's basically doing all these checks. And he has like his coffee there and everything. And he's like, go ahead, sit down. And he patches him up. He says you shouldn't sneak around when a man's shooting a bow. He's like, yeah, you could have, gotten hurt. And he's like, yeah, sure. And so he says, how many did you hit? And his answer is interesting. He says, I wasn't counting my score. So he says that he has had target panic himself. And he was basically been doing 100 arrows for 100 days before he moves on. Now, was he actually going to quit archery, or was he just quitting this one goal and moving on to something else? That's the big question. And by the end of it, it seems like he's like, well, I'm not going to keep quitting. Are you going to quit? So, but I love that he says, I wasn't counting my score. That's not what was important. It was the fact that he was shooting all the arrows. He's like, just the arrows I fired. And he's like, well, how many did you fire? And he says, 80. I have 20 left. He's like, you're doing 100. And he's like, why fire so many a day? And he's like, it's not just about today. It's my 97th day. I have 3 days left. So yeah, so I like the idea that Masaki, he's doing goal setting, and it's about, the process of the goal, not just how successful you are, right? And so I feel like if he's had target panic before, that firing 100 arrows for 100 days, it's helping him to build back that confidence, to build back that muscle memory, to build back to where he feels like it's okay. But it also makes him do it, right? Because if you ever panicked about something, or you've ever had any trauma with something, you don't want to repeat it because you're afraid of having that same feeling again. So this is kind of a way to break you from that, being like, and I like his mentality of, it doesn't matter how many I hit. The point is, I kept going and I met my quota. I don't care about the score. And so I feel like he's going to be someone that Minato can turn to, because there is a dynamic with him and Masaki that is different than that of his friends. Because with your friends comes baggage and comes emotions and comes expectations. And that's kind of the problem of when you work with someone that and that you have that bond and relationship with, there are those expectations built in. And Minato gets cornered by Seiya later on in the episode. He's like, what do you want me to say? So there's all of that emotion that goes along with it. But with Masaki, he's an outsider. He's someone that doesn't have that close bond with Minato. So Minato can go to him and get advice, and it feels like it's from an outside source, right? It's like when you tell a friend or a family member something and they don't listen, but then when somebody from outside the family circle is like, maybe you should do that, and they're like, that's a great idea, and you're like, I've been saying that all along. It's that feeling. I feel like Seiya can go over and over again trying to get Minato to do something, but Minato's not going to have it, right? Because of how their relationship is. And Ryohei has been somewhat instrumental in getting Minato to come, but now Minato shut him out. But this is somebody different, and it's somebody outside of their friend circle that he has a different type of comfort zone with. So I feel like that's going to be pretty important moving forward to get Minato to kind of come back and bounce back from that panic. And so he's like, it's just a little whim I had. He's like, I made a goal for myself, and so I'm going to do it. I like that. I like Masaki's attitude about it. His voice actor sounds familiar, which I'm sure you all will tell me who that is. But it has a distinct voice. I'm trying to imagine who it could be. He's like, you've shot before, right? Am I wrong? I want to find out, actually, while I'm here with y'all. I will be like, Tsurune, Masaki, voice actor. Tell me your secrets. Who is his voice actor? Shintaro Asanuma. I'm like, okay, what we got here? Shintaro Asanuma. Who else has he voiced? Show me your secrets. He's voiced, he's Kuramochi from Ace of the Diamond. Oh, okay. Interesting. He's Kuramochi. Okay. Wow. Such a different character than Kuramochi. I would not have imagined that. Okay. Interesting. He's like, I have, but no thanks. And so Minato tries to get out of shooting the bow, and Masaki's like, don't run away. He's like, aren't you here because you wanted to shoot? Yeah, getting some Neon Genesis vibes from this series too, right? But Masaki, he basically says, he's like, don't run away. He's like, he's talking about like, face your panic head on, like work through it, right? And he's like, why'd you come here? It's a shrine out in the middle of nowhere. Even if you biked past it, why did you stop here and stick around? Like, you obviously heard the bow. It drew you here. You want to shoot, right? Otherwise you would have kept going. So what's the deal, right? And when Minato gets nervous, he clutches his side and he clutches that scar. When he gets nervous, he clutches that scar out of a reflex, right? Whenever he doesn't want to do something. And he doesn't want to shoot. And of course, who gets freaked out by it? And he's like, oh, Yare. And so then we go to our intro. So interestingly enough, I'm going to put up here, Fujiwara. So Fujiwara is the childhood friend who is also a prodigy, because they make a point of saying that, oh, he's almost as good or better than Fujiwara, right? And he's at the rival school. Wow. I could name lots of characters that that's like in sports anime, but he is the quintessential sports anime rival, where he is like, they're childhood friends, now he's a prodigy on a different team. that Minato's going to have to face against. And of course, they frame them as perfect opposites throughout this episode, because when they're in the finals, you see Minato has the triple X's where he didn't score the target, and then you see where Fujiwara has the 3 scores. Fujiwara's character, though, he seems really soft and kind of quiet and somber, so he also seems kind of sad that Minato's not on the same team as him anymore. So I'm like, what are we going to do? Interesting. And the hand that grabs, in the OP, the hand that grabs Minato's hand, we have the mom's hand, and then we have the hand that I'm assuming is Masaki's. Like, that's the mentor figure that Minato's going to have to keep pushing him forward. Very curious indeed. Okay. So, in any case, we go back to the school and everything in the room, and Minato is just kind of avoiding everyone. He's thinking about Masaki and thinking about that night and what it says about him. And then Seiya is trying to do everything he can to get back in Minato's good graces. We're not exactly sure why. We get kind of an idea of what's going on, but Seiya for some reason says that he is atoning. He's atoning for what he did to Minato. And we don't exactly know what that is yet, right? But he's going out of his way to help. And Minato just isn't about it. He's just like, he probably thinks that it's fake. He's like, you're just helping me because you feel guilty. Like, leave me alone. But Seiya is trying to reconnect with him, right? And he asks what happens to his hand. He's like, oh, it's nothing. And when he walks away, Seiya's just like, he's like, as if anybody believes that. He's like, it wasn't nothing. And then in comes our resident golden retriever, Ryuhei. Ryuhei is a precious cinnamon bun, and I want to protect him from all of the harms in the world, because he is just so innocent and pure. And he's like, I should have stalked out the bike racks. It's like, he's like, oh my gosh, Ryuhei. He's like, I want to do Kyudo with Minato, you know? And Seiya's like, I do as well. But Minato's just not having it. So, yeah, so Seiya, he wants Minato to be on the team with them, right? He wants Minato back. Okay, and so does Ryuhei. Now, obviously, Kaido does not think that Minato's any good, so I'm going to be happy when he gets proven wrong. But yeah, so I'm actually surprised that we have as many people join the Kyudo Club as we do. There's actually quite a few there. And old Tommy Sensei, in the Discord, there were several people like, Tommy Sensei, I'm like, he is a angel, and I want to give him all the cookies, and he's wonderful. But yeah, he's trying to introduce them to the bows and having them hold it. And I like that he ties back the legacy of the bow and arrow and about archery, and saying that there's so many things, so many sayings, so many idioms that we get in modern times that are actually from the use of a bow and arrow. And it's kind of cool to see it to show one's hand. I thought to show one's hand had to do with like poker or a card game. But no, in this episode he says it was revealing one's secret techniques for holding the bow. I'm like, I learned something new today. That's real fun. I like that. But I like that Seiya's sitting there showing them like the weight of the arrows and seeing like how they're different. And then he's like, I'm going to have you guys hold a bow. And so we have 4 guys there. We have 5 guys. Well, 6. There's one guy in the back that looks creepily like he's just there to check out chicks. So we got like 6 guys, and then we have like 5 or 6 girls. So there's like a dozen that have stuck around, right? And time flies like an arrow. And then I like that Tommy Sensei is super nice. He's a very good teacher. He's very nice. He's just like, you guys need to know the basics. Kaido would not be a good teacher. Kaido's just like, were you a bunch of kindergartners? It's like, you don't tell people that. Don't make them feel bad. He's like, what is this, kindergarten? And now it's like, now don't be mean. Like, he's like, that's not very nice. We're all beginners at first, right? And Kaido's like, I came out of the womb ready to shoot a bullseye. Kaido like was born to be an archer. I like this one guy looks really startled by Kaido. Like, he has the blanching face. And Tommy Sensei just ignores him. Tommy Sensei is like, we're just going to act like Kaido's not here. We're actually going to touch the bow and start from there. And the girls are like, wow, really? We're already doing that? I guess that's something that they didn't just automatically do. But Tommy Sensei says if they don't touch it, how can they appreciate its weight? He's like, we're not going to just, beat around the bush here. We're going to dive into the fray and figure out how this works from the start, which I like that. I like Tommy Sensei's approach. It's interesting. It's so heavy. And Seiya, he said that he wanted to make the archery team successful, right? He wants Minato to be there as well. And I love that juxtaposition where it goes from Seiya in the midst of all of these people, and you can tell that even though he's surrounded by all these people, he's lonely because Minato's not there. And then we cut to Minato, who is actually alone on the bike trail, right? So, and then he goes back to where Masaki is, and Masaki is fixing his string, and he goes there to help him. It's like, yeah, sure. Why'd you come here, right? He's like, fetch me my glove powder box. And we see like the process of him like getting and I love that. Again, what gave me Kaji vibes with Masaki is that when he tells him to open up, he's like, it's got the naughty bikini pattern on it. Like he's totally teasing Minato. And I was like, and he's like, you simple high school boy. Puberty's a fun time. Like, he clearly looks like he's in his late 20s. But yeah, it does have bikinis on it, doesn't it? I thought he was joking at first, like he was not being serious. But when he opens it up, does it actually... It does! I mean, maybe it's not meant to be bikini bottoms, but it does look like bikini bottoms. That's funny. And he's like, bingo. You've got what it takes. And he says, you dragged me into this. And it's like, no, you came here and chose to stick around. And then he has Who come. And I love that he makes him like stay still so that Who can perch on his shoulder. Because the bird is trained to land and stick wherever it is, right? Yeah, you huckleberry. And so I thought that was kind of like an exercise in like calming him and making him like fix his shoulders and stay there. Because he's like, you're the perfect perch for Who. But he could have left Who where he was, right? Who was on the tree when he came the first time, so he wasn't anywhere near the targets or anything. But I feel like it's making him like be still and not be antsy and not run away because he is the perch for Who. I thought that it was a very intentional move on his part. And he's gonna pay him in buns. And he's like, don't be mad, kid. It's rare that Who won't flee from someone. And he's just so calm. He's so calm that the owl's just like perched there happy. And so I like these, like, don't tell me what to do. And then Who starts to move and he's like, it's really cute. And he has a little blush. It's great. Huckleberry. But yeah, so he's sitting there firing his bow and has like his actual uniform on. He's not in his midnight outfit for this episode. He's in his traditional garb, right? Again, it made no sense for him to be a ghost. How could he change clothes? How could he fix the string? But this show does something about making you believe it. That it's like, oh, okay. I honestly was ready to believe he was a ghost. But yeah, so then we cut back to, we go from the serene location where it's just Minato and Masaki back to the hall where everybody's learning how to properly like stretch, do your form, everything. Kaido is not pleased with anyone because they're not doing it right. And Tommy asks them if they want to participate in a tournament, in an official match. And they're like, oh, will we make it in time? Classic sports anime, right? Are we going to be able to do the tournament? So we find out that Seiya and the one girl with the dark hair, they never had a Kyudo club middle school. And I thought this was pretty cool that Ryuhei's like, well, then how did you guys learn? And they're like, we went to the halls. He's like, how do you know? And they're like, oh, we went to the practice halls, the local Kyudo hall. That's where we ended up. It's kind of like, if your school doesn't have like a soccer team or something, or a football team, then you go to like I want to think that we didn't have a soccer team when I was in high school. So if you wanted to play soccer, you had to go to like the community league. There we go. It was like the community league or like the county league or something. And it was kind of like, it wasn't affiliated with a specific school. It was just like a local private thing that people could join if they wanted to. And that seems like how they learned Kyudo, which is pretty interesting. And so they're like, what about you, Yuna? And Yuna's like, well, I went to a different school than them, but I don't have any competitive experience either. And so, but Nanao is like, let's do it. Nanao is fearless. He's like, go for it. He's like, let's do the darn thing. Let's be a team. And I love Kaido. The animation on Kaido, if you go to his face in this moment, he's just sitting there like, I'm actually going to take a screenshot of that to show you all. because it's actually his face. His expression is really funny. It just looks like, he just looks at them like, you plebeians. Like, how could you? And Seiya is very contemplative. And, oh my gosh, Nanao is hilarious. He is not, I compared him to Nagisa from Free in the last episode. No, he only looks kind of like Nagisa. He's all like, he's kind of a little bit of a playboy, but this girl like shoves it right back in his face because he's like, you girls should totally do this competition. Like, I do well when a lady's there to motivate me. And this girl, she just dead-eyed. She goes, I'm not doing anything to motivate you, Kisaragi-kun. And it's like, cold. It's like just burned, like a freeze burn. And Ryohei's like, I don't know much about the ladies, but it seems like that was not what you wanted to hear. I love that he turns away like, and kind of snorts. And Nanao takes it pretty well, though. Nanao's like, it's okay. And so Tommy's like, all right, this will be our first tournament. But group matches require 5 people, so we don't have enough. They don't have enough guys or girls to make the group match. So they're all going to have to perform as individuals. Kind of like in another sports anime where you just have like the individual events, right? You don't have enough to make a team. And the girls are like, we can all work individually. We're fine with that. Sounds good. And then Seiya says, I won't compete as an individual. Let the boys enter as a group. We're going to get Minato. And then, yeah, Nanao's like, how are we going to do it? And he's like, there's one other person I expect to join. And Kaido says, you mean that coward from before? So Kaido's not even acknowledging him by his name. And he's like, he's not ever going to join. And Seiya's like, Minato isn't a coward and he will join. And then Kaido's like, well, I'm still not acknowledging him. He's a scrub. And Seiya says when he's shooting well, he's better than you. So yeah, Seiya wants to be a team. He wants to be a team with Minato. And he's not gonna quit until he joins. It's like, okay. But he's very persistent. I feel like, and that gets Kaido's attention. When he's like, oh, well, when he's on his game, he's better than you. And Kaido's like, huh? And then Nanao's like, I'm gonna shut this down before it gets any worse, right? Let's just calm down, think about this. And so the deadline's not there for a while, Tommy says. We'll think it over. So there is like time for Minato to come back to the team, which after this episode, it looks like he's going to, which I'm glad. So yeah, so we got to Seiya and Ryohei at the vending machines. Want to make note that the drinks that each of them have is like the most perfect quintessential drink for their personalities. You have Seiya has like a black coffee, very standard, classic, basic. And then whatever Ryohei has, it looks like a Kool-Aid, like a Mondo or something. It looks like a Kool-Aid pouch. It's the most bright, colorful thing. It kind of fits it. So Ryohei asks about target panic. Like what is that like? Does it have to do with why Minato is not being on the team with us? And Seiya's like, he's like, I can't speak for Minato because I don't know. And I don't know what target panic's like, so I can't speak to it. But Minato is struggling with it. It's kind of like the yips in baseball. I've been watching Ace of the Diamond and a character gets the yips on it and it's kind of like that. And it kind of like puts them in a slump and they can't move forward and it sucks. So that seems to be where Minato is, which is not good. And Ryohei is like, well, how do you fix it? How long does it take? And Seiya's like, I don't know. Maybe you can't fix it. Does that mean there's nothing we can do? And Seiya's kind of like, Seiya, he knows that Minato is the one to change. He's like, we're trying everything that we can to be supportive and to be there for him. But at the end of the day, Minato's got to be the one to decide to come back. We can't make him, right? We can't make him do it. It's got to be him. That's all we can do, right? And so Ryohei, he's like, you're the one who wants to shoot with him the most, right? And Seiya's like, well, I do want to shoot with him, but he's like, I don't want to enter his group because of that. That's not the reason. And so then Ryohei's like, well, then why'd you do it? But he's like, that is it, Ryohei. I must atone for what I did. So he lies to Ryohei and says, no, I'm not trying to get him on the team because I want to shoot with him. But then whenever he leaves, he's like, no, yeah, that's right. He's like, I have to atone for what I did. So I'm like, what did you do? So I don't know because we got the image of 10 months earlier, right? I was like, well, what did you do? And so we cut to 10 months earlier to see, and this episode's called At Wit's End. Like Seiya and Minato are both like, they're just at the end of their rope, right? So we cut to 10 months earlier and we see that Minato's a really good archer, that he hasn't missed a shot, that he just keeps firing and they're perfect. He goes to Kurosaki too, but he's not like the young prince. Is that a swipe at Fujiwara-kun? So Fujiwara-kun is known as the young prince. Of course he is. Of course he is. He's very princely. He has beautiful floofy hair and pretty purple eyes. Of course he's princely. But so they were going to the Kisaraki school, the one that's the private school that had the really good Kyudo team. And his dad kind of laments it later. He's like, well, why? He's like, I wish you could have gone to that high school as well. I'm guessing that's where Fujiwara is now. He's at the prestigious Kyudo high school. But that's it, right? And so it shows them they're all a team together. And they're all firing. And they all just look so serene. But yeah, he gets 3 bullseyes. He might outscore Fujiwara. Do you think he'll go that far? Yeah, he gets like so many. Like they're perfect. And then they're all getting ready to go. And he says, Kurosaki competitors, please get ready. Now he's holding his hand in that shot. So I have a feeling we're going to keep going back and forth to this finals for middle school, because it's pretty much key to why they've all gone their separate ways, or at least why Fujiwara broke away from them. So it seems like, yeah, it seems like something may have happened. Where am I? I don't have one for Minato. But with Minato, it seems like maybe he hurt his hand, or something didn't feel right, and he was kind of worried going in. He's like, something doesn't feel right. But they say that they're all, I'm going to say that Fujiwara is at Kurosaki High School. I'm going to say that. But the thing is, maybe the 3 of them originally were all going to go to Kurosaki together, move from middle school to high school, and then after this finals, when this target panic kicked in for Minato, he just quit and ran away. And he ran away to the high school that he's at now. And Seiya, for whatever reason, Seiya decided to join him because he didn't want to leave him alone. Interesting. So we have Fujiwara, who looks very handsome and very stoic. I'm curious to see what his personality is like. He seems kind of like Minato. And so he's like, okay, let's go. And then Fujiwara says, Saionji sensei is here. And so he's like, right. So I'm guessing Saionji, maybe that was a scout for Kurosaki, and they were like, we have to look good in front of the scouts so that we'll get recruited for the team. Maybe that's it, or maybe it was somebody that they knew that was really well known in the archery world, so they wanted to impress him. For whatever reason, Minato gets the target panic. He gets overwhelmed by the pressure, right? Which happens in so many sports anime, right? He gets overwhelmed by the pressure, and they all go in. But I'm like, but in this flashback, Seiya says he has to atone for what he did, but we don't see him do anything wrong. And we know from the last episode, we know that Seiya was there for him whenever he kind of started to break down afterwards. So what did Seiya do? Or what did Seiya not do? But yeah, but Minato starts to get nervous. He's like, maybe now I can make that sound. He's looking for that Tsurune with his own hands. So he's been hitting the targets, but he hasn't been making the sound. He's chasing after that sound. So he was hitting the target, but he wasn't satisfied. Wasn't enough, right? And then it all just kind of came crashing down, right? So interesting. But yeah, and that's when the whole thing happens, and he gets freaked out, and he's worried. He's like, I can't fail this time. It's the finals. We can't win if I don't hit. And that's such a relatable feeling. Oh my gosh, that's so relatable. Like, when you're in a team sport, yeah, you're on a team, and you share the victory, and you share the loss, but it's so easy to psych yourself out and be like, if I don't do well, my team is going to do bad, and then we're all going to fail, and it's going to be my fault. No, I I did competitive speech, and it was one of those things where the points all add up, and if you had a bad day and it brought the team down, you just felt like it was your fault and like you should have done so much better. So I know that feeling, and that it sucks. And so it makes sense that he's worried. He's like, if I don't hit, and then he can't do it. I can't hear my Tsurune anymore. And then, and Masaki talks about that in the episode. He talks about how the sound is connected to who you are, right? It's connected to your being. So that's really interesting. But he gives him like he's like, here's your compensation for being my perch. And he's like, I'll set down my bow after my 100 days. He's like, I'll quit. And he's like, well, why? And he's like, it would be such a waste. And he's like, oh, well, thanks for saying that. But what about you? You said you don't want to shoot, right? I love that this whole time, Masaki's kind of a chaotic mess because he let him leave that little feather on his shoulder. I was like, take that feather off. I would have reached over and grabbed it, right? But no, he says, what's wrong? And he's like, the Tsurune, I can't hear that sound anymore that the arrow releases. And then he goes and grabs his side. He's like, when I started doing archery, I did it to hear that sound. But the arrow leaves my hand and it takes the sound with it. Ah, even though I'm not trying to let go. You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of, it's curious, it reminds me a little bit of Kiki's Delivery Service, where there's the artist in that movie, and the artist laments that for a while, she lost where she couldn't feel the artwork anymore. She couldn't feel the inspiration anymore, and she was kind of like stagnant and kind of had artist block. And for her, she had to step away from it and just quit for a while, and then it came back. But here it almost seems like Masaki is suggesting doing the opposite. Like, don't quit, don't run away, but keep practicing and work through it. So it is a little bit, it seems like a similar situation that the artist in Kiki's Delivery Service went through, but the solution is much different than the one that she comes to. And he's like, oh, target panic. I love that as soon as he said target panic, the owl was like looked over like it knew. And so apparently he had the same thing happen with him. He's like, that's rough. It's rough, buddy. He's like, the worst part of target panic. He's like, it's not missing the target. It's not feeling like you've let people down. He says the worst part about target panic is feeling like you don't know yourself anymore. Which sounds really cheesy, but I kind of get that because, yeah, you've done a sport for so long, it feels like it's part of you. So that when you can't do that sport anymore, you're like, well, then who am I, right? If I've been doing archery this whole time and now I can't do it, then what does that make me? What does that say about me? So yeah, the idea of losing yourself because of that, it makes a lot of sense, right? And Minato seems to completely understand, even though he won't directly admit it. And he's like, you don't know how your form feels anymore. He's like, well, you seem like you know a lot about it. And he's like, that's because I have suffered from it. He's like, do you think you're the only one who's ever had it? And then he just goes, He's perfect. Masaki's wonderful, and I love him already. But yeah, so then Kuma, I love that we get to see from the other side of the fence, that little hole that Kuma sticks his head through. It's a big shrubbery, and we get to finally see it from the other side where he goes to. It's really cute, right? But of course, Minato's like super happy to see Kuma. But then as soon as he sees Seiya, he's like, oh. And Seiya's like, what you got? And that's interesting, is that Seiya goes to pick the feather off his shoulder, and Minato, he flinches at contact from Seiya. That part was interesting. I was like, oh, he doesn't even want him in his space. Like what is the deal? What is the deal? He's like, do you guys have pet birds? And he's like, no. And he's so cold to Seiya. So there's a big part of me like, I don't want you all to tell me, don't do that. But I'm so curious to find out what Seiya and him, what their big fallout was, because they're kind of in a situation where they're neighbors, so they have to see each other, and they're being on like neutral, acquaintance friendly terms, but clearly something has harmed their relationship. So I'm like, what is it? What's the deal? Also, the animation KyoAni did whenever Kuma sneezed and it like blurred out the screen, y'all didn't have to animate that hard for a sneeze, but it's KyoAni and I appreciate it. So he's like, and so Seiya just comes out and says it. He's like, let's go to the tournament. He's like, we have 4 boys with you. We'd have 5. He's like, let's just do it. He's like, there won't be any competing over lineup. So no one complains about the results. And Minato's like, stop. He's like, quit trying. He's like, did you not see me back then? He's like, I can't shoot like you do. So again, Minato is doubting himself, right? He's doubting himself. He doesn't think he'll be as good. And Seiya's kind of interesting because Seiya just is very blunt. He just comes out, he's blunt about the competition, right? He just comes out and says it. He's like, hey, it's fine. And I think he kind of tries to throw him a bone where he's like, it won't matter what order we're in. And Minato's like, don't patronize me. Like, I don't want to do it. He's like, I can't shoot anymore. And he's like, if I were you, I wouldn't want to shoot with an archer like me. He's like, I don't see us as a team. He's running away from the Nakama. Running away from it, right? And Seiya's not having it. He says, but I do. You're a valuable part of my team. And this part where he says, what? But you didn't say anything in middle school. So, is part of what Seiya is trying to atone for the fact that whenever Minato had this breakdown, when he had this breakdown, was Seiya not there to support him? Did Seiya run away? Did Seiya run and leave our boy Minato? And now Minato's like, I can't do it. Seems like it might have been the case. He's like, how can you start saying it now? He's like, yeah, you didn't support me back then. Why are you starting to now? And Seiya clearly is like, I wanted to, but didn't do it. Now it's my fault. He's like, I don't need your compassion this late. Leave me alone. Oh. He's like, yeah, it's too late. Too little too late. And Seiya's just not having it. And Seiya just, like, kind of lets loose at this point. He's like, at last year's Prefectural Finals, he's like, would you be happy if I said we lost because of you? Like, he does not back down, right? What I like about Seiya's character in this, even though it's very confrontational and very forward, and I can see some people being like, whoa, no, is that no, he kind of takes the Victor mentality from Yuri on Ice, where Victor's like, your heart's made of glass. I wonder what would happen if I break it. That's kind of Seiya in this moment. Seiya's like, I've been trying to be nice and telling you that I need the Nakama, that I need you on our team. That's not working. So what if I told you that, yeah, it is your fault we lost? It's in the past. It's over. Are you going to wallow about it all day? But yeah, him walking forward against him, he's like, if that's really what you want, I'll say it again and again. We lost because of you. And he just walks right up to Minato and he's like, if you hadn't developed target panic, we would have won. There. He's like, I said it. And this line, he's like, you know me. When I get serious, I have no need for compassion. So that's the thing about Seiya's personality that he says. He's like, you know how I am. When I am serious, I am not compassionate. So Seiya has a thing where he like lets go of emotion quite easily. And Minato seems like a big bundle of emotion and nerves, right? So that's fascinating that Seiya's like, what do you want me? So I'm wondering if Seiya said something at the middle school tournament where he blamed Minato for their loss, where he blamed for them. I wonder if he lashed out and was like, it's your fault we lost and we shouldn't be a team anymore. You shouldn't be with us. And then later regretted it and was like, in the moment, I was serious and I wasn't thinking and I wasn't being compassionate about your needs and where you were at. And now I regret it and I want to try to atone for what I did. He's like, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just going to try to make things right. He's like, what I should have said is that we need to be on a team together and we need to work through this. But I goofed, so now I'm trying to make up for it. Interesting. Very interesting about his character. But yeah, he's like, it's a trivial matter for me to make you cry. Oh my gosh, like that was, whew. Huh. And that does it. Minato like has to leave. But yeah, he says it's a trivial matter to make you cry. And then we cut to Minato in his room being so mad. And yeah, being like, stupid, you don't get it. Shut the hell up. So being like, you don't understand what I'm going through. And yeah, things not easily patched up. Nope. Not easily patched up, especially between Seiya and Minato. Yeah, that was so hard to watch. But then he sees the powder pouch that he got from Masaki. And so Masaki, I'm sorry, but this whole Kiwani, you did it with Rin and Free. Don't think I didn't notice when he does the hand through the hair. When he does that. Yeah, he did that with Rin and Free. He did that. Yeah, they did that. They animated that. It was glorious. And now you're doing it with Masaki? How dare you? But he says, I've been rotten since summer of my 3rd year. I couldn't hit I could hit a target, but my form was a total mess. And he just like swoops his hair back. Masaki's a very dashing man. And so he says, I changed my bow, my arrows, nothing worked. I took pictures, I ran comparisons, nothing worked. I worked my upper body, that he did, nothing worked. Nothing I did made a difference. And Minato's like, well, but now you're hitting targets. He's like, well, it's gotten less bad since then, that's all. I'm like, you hit every target last night, and that's less bad? I'm guessing Masaki might have been a prodigy and then had the target panic, and now he's just really, really good. But it's taken all this time for him to get back to form, right? He says, it's gotten less bad since then. I don't see myself as recovered. And so Minato, again, it's important Minato's getting this because he's realizing it doesn't get better right away. No, it doesn't. Like if you have something traumatic, and that could apply, I feel like it's under the surface, not only applying to him having the target panic, but the fact of losing his mom. Like, no, it doesn't get better right away. No, it's something that's going to carry with you for a long time, and it may never be what it was. It will just get better. So I like that kind of double meaning behind this conversation that they're having concerning the target panic. And yeah, Minato, of course, wants to fix the target panic. He's like, there's nothing for you here. Archery should be done with a team. And as soon as he said that, I was like, Masaki's trying to get you to go back on that team that Seiya wanted you to be on. But I do like what the show is doing, saying that Seiya, even though he has good intentions, his personality is not conducive. It's interesting. Basically, it's like Seiya wants to be on a team, but when you watch him back earlier on in the episode, when the others are practicing, he's off by himself. He's just watching the group, but he's alone. So Seiya wants there to be teamwork and wants there to be a team, but he knows and is self-aware that his personality is not conducive for that. So that's fascinating. Because yeah, in the last episode, Seiya had Ryohei go and drag Minato everywhere because he knew that Ryohei had the personality to do so. So, interesting. Interesting. Yeah, very neat. But yeah, anyway. So, he tells him it should be done with the team. And he's like, this place isn't for you, Minato. You can't cure your target panic here. He's like, this works for me. It's not going to work for you. No. He's like, I'm not someone who exists in your real life. Now that line there, when I first heard it, I was like, like what does that possibly mean? But I thought he was saying like you can't keep coming to me for all of life's answers. I'm not going to be your cure for target panic. You need to work with a team. You need to be in a group. You need to go back and be on something. He's like, you're in high school. You need to be in a club that's doing this. He's like, you can't just come to me and expect your target panic to be cured. He's like, that's not going to work. So I do get why he said it, but the way he said it there, I was like, wait, what? And so then he's like, I need to go give it back. But before he does that, he has the dinner with his dad, right? I do like the dinner with his father. And I do like his father's character so far. He seems like a nice guy. It's interesting that Minato looks like a mixture of his mom and dad. Like, he has a lot of their features. Kiwani is really good about families and making characters look similar and dissimilar and like they're actually related. Kiwani's really good at that. They do a great job in their animation. But the dad's like, this tastes just like your mom. And Minato's like, well, I never cooked that before. And it's like, well, you're drawn to things that you love. So you probably learned it because, you saw your mom making it all the time. And so the dad asks how the school is. And Minato says he likes it because it's close. And the dad's like, well, he's like, I wish I could have sent you to Kurosaki. Meaning, he's like, I bet you wanted to go there, right? And he's like, no, it's fine. I prefer this other school, Kazumai. He's like, really? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I wish your mom could have seen you do more Kyoto. And he's like, it's fine. Forget it. But it's like, no, you're going to want to do it, right? And so he goes to take the pouch back, right? And then the part where she's like, they're having like an actual archery class, right? So I'm guessing, okay, that he actually is a teacher or something there, right? Not the one that died. He's actually a teacher there at the hall. Okay, and then at night he stays afterwards and practices late, okay? That makes a lot more sense. But when this woman's like, oh, who? She's like, oh, Takigawa-san, you say? The one who really liked archery. Yeah, he passed away a year ago. And I'm like, what? I'm curious how many people got faked out by that, because this show did a really good job of doing the fake out. And you wonder, because there's like the dead mom and everything, like, is this going to be about spirituality? Like, what is this series going to do? And then, yeah. Fun times. But yeah. So they go to the grave with the mom. And I honestly thought that maybe like the first bow shoot was going to be the same time they were going to visit the grave, and it was going to be this big dramatic conflict of interest. But no, they really do have a long time before the deadline, apparently. But they go to the grave and bring like the flowers and everything. And then we find out that the mom seems to know a lot about archery. So I'm curious to know more about her if we're going to get that. And she says it's the sound made by the bowstring. And she seems so excited. She's like, if you make it to a tournament, I'll cheer myself hoarse for you. But I don't know if she was at that first tournament. There are so many things I wish we'd done together. And then the dad says so many things that you realize after you've lost someone. So many regrets about one thing or another. I want you to live your life with no regrets, Minato. And that's kind of tied to the whole thing where he's like, don't waste your life running away and not tackling this head on. Like, face it and see what will happen, right? But don't live your life with regrets, because you don't know how long you have left, right? And so he goes back and sees Masaki at the range again and like gives back the powder. And the funny thing about all this is he thinks he's a ghost this whole time. He's like ready for this spirit, like to give the powder back and everything. And then, but what makes it worse is that Masaki says, oh no, you keep the powder. I'm not using it anymore. Like, that's like I have no use for it anymore because I'm dead. And that's, at this point, my brain was on autopilot trying to figure out like all the different scenarios. I was Minato being like, you're a ghost. How is this possible? What is this spiritual thing y'all didn't tell me about? And he's like, oh, you came at the perfect time. I'm about to fire my 10,000s. Can you help me with it? And he like goes to fire it. And Minato's like, he can't let him do it. And they play it up so much in this moment. And Minato just can't do it. And I love that he freaks out and he's like, I'm not someone who exists in your real life. Like, they just cut back to it. Oh my god. And he's like, wait, don't do it. He's like, don't disappear. I love the way you shoot, Masa-san. He's like, I want to see more of it. And he's like, I only just found you, so please. And Masa's like, what the hell? He's like, please don't disappear. And he's like, what do you think is happening? And he's like, what? And then, he tells him, and poor Minato is just like red in the face. He's like, Takizawa is the one who died, not Takigawa. The lady had it wrong. Oh my god. Oh my god. Minato's like, well, I just embarrassed myself by hugging a strange man that I barely know and tell him that I love his beautiful form and that I don't want to see him disappear. I'm gonna head right out. I feel like that's exactly what he's thinking. But yeah, you were talking to Oda-san, right? He's like, she's as scatterbrained as she is talkative. She's still as scatterbrained as she is talkative. So maybe he doesn't work there. If he's like, maybe he doesn't work there, but he did before. It's like, how can you still believe in ghosts in high school? And I was like, oh my god, leave me alone. He's like, just forget it. He's like, I'm glad to hear that you love what I do. It's something I can't do anything about. That's so interesting. So I'm so curious with Masaki, like, why is he supposedly Why is he not working at the school? What's going on? Like, what's the deal with him? Like, there's some mystery with Seiya. There's some mystery with Masaki. It's interesting, right? He's like, are you going to stop? And he offers him, he's like, you draw the 10,000s for me. It's like, you do it. He's like, end one thing and then start another. That's what the shot is for. So he's like, it's a sign that I'm moving forward. I've made my goal. I've met my goal. And now I move on to the next thing. I love that. Okay. And he does the shot, but it doesn't make it. But then like the little Kiwani leaves come out of it, right? But that sound came back to him. That's what it was. He didn't make the shot, but the sound came back. He heard the sound this time, right? He heard it. And that's what gives him the courage to say, okay, I heard the sound from the string. I'm not ready to give up. And it's his face. He looks so sincere. Like him just smiling like, yeah, it's still there. He's just got to chase after it. That's so sweet. And he's like, you're not going to quit, are you, Masa-san? And he's like, well, what about you? And he's like, no, I won't quit either. So I hit him like, yeah, no, you weren't really going to quit all this time. And neither am I. I love that. He's like, are you going to go back? He's like, yeah. He's like, good. Aww. Oh, I love their dynamic. I love this mentor-mentee relationship that we have with the stupid powder and everything. That's so sweet. I love that. So I have a feeling that Minato is going to be like going back and forth to seeing Masaki like check up with him on things. Again, though, there's some mystery with Masaki. There's some mystery with Seiya. Very interested in these two characters and more about them. I'm interested in Fujiwara. Get more with him as the rival and the school childhood friend and prodigy. And then obviously Minato, I think next episode is going to come back. So I'm really excited about that. So yeah, I don't think there was any end credits or anything. Nope, just a preview. So that's exciting. So I'm excited for next episode. If Minato is going to go back to the high school Kyudo club, how Seiya is going to take it. Ryohei is probably going to be ecstatic. And then I just have a feeling that Kaido is going to be like, prove yourself and be all broody. And I'm excited for it. So I'm curious to know your thoughts down below if you were ghosted out like I was and what y'all thought of this episode. But this was really nice. I'm really on board with it. I love Masaki's character, my heart. And I'm really excited for the mystery that is going to unfold in this series as we go. That part's going to be exciting. So, with that said, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Tsurune. Bye.